I don't think China has quite said that international law does not apply to this. I think what they have said is they have claims which existed long before international law came into existence, and these have to be given due weight because international law does not go back to things which preceded it. And if you are a big country, well, you bend the rules. The US is a big country. So there is international law, but you have not ratified UNCLOS. You have not subscribed to the International Criminal Court. And there are other occasions when if things go against you in WTO, well, there are a lot of people who say, why do I have to follow this? But I know that the Chinese have seen other great powers which have tried to rise by might. And they have cited the examples of the Spanish and the Portuguese and the German Reich and the Soviet Union and the British Empire. And they have said all those have come, risen, and fallen. And they are trying not to make the same mistake. And I wish them every success in avoiding it. There are many opportunities in the region. There are also tensions and complexities in the region between China and Japan, between Japan and Korea, within Southeast Asia. Each country has its own political dynamic. Between China and Southeast Asia, we want to be good friends, and we are good friends. I would say that none of the Southeast Asian countries want to have a fight with China. In fact, China, too, goes considerably out of its way to develop friendly relations with ASEAN. And they have very thoughtful, comprehensive, committed plans to do that. But there is this issue of the territorial and the maritime disputes, and it is not easy to resolve because of another factor which has changed in 10 years, and that is that nationalism has become a stronger sentiment and a stronger factor in influencing governments.
And now, as you mentioned, we have these severe tensions between China and Japan, between China and South Korea.
Oh, not between China and South Korea.
Excuse me. No. Thank you for the correction. Between Japan and South Korea. No, actually, South Korean relations with China are very good at the moment. I was just recently in South Korea and saw this firsthand. Should the United States be concerned when South Korean relations with China significantly improve from the low point of 3 years ago at the time of the Chonan ship incident?
First, I think you should be concerned that your treaty partners have good friends in the region. Because if your treaty partners are at odds with others in the region, you are their partner and there are implications for you.
Singapore is a small country that hits way above its weight in the international community, but which nevertheless has to be vulnerable to negative trends in the region. What is your sense as to what prospects are for reversing these negative trends and getting Asia back on an overwhelmingly positive movement?
I think if you compare where we are today with 10 years ago, it's not just the negative trends which have become stronger, but the positive trends also. It's both. What's happened is that the participants have become stronger, the interactions have become more intense, and when you're managing intense interactions, there's great benefits, but also great complexity. So the trade volumes between China and ASEAN, or China and Japan, is much huger now than it was 10 years ago. The people movements, I mean, tourism, students, business people moving, the volumes are much greater than before. Even trans-Pacific, between America and China, your trade, your investments, your degree of interconnectedness is much greater than before.
2 years ago, you visited the Central Party School of the Chinese Communist Party and gave what I thought was an extraordinarily thoughtful speech in which you both looked at developments in China and at regional issues. And I was struck by one phrase in your speech where you said that China needed to upgrade its economy to continue improving people's lives. It has to restructure from an export-led economy to a more sustainable, demand-driven one. It must prepare for a rapidly aging population, strengthen social safety nets, and address rising income inequality. It must also undertake political reforms to meet rising public expectations for accountability, while maintaining social order and stability. Now, what struck me when I reread your speech was that if you compare this to the bold program of reforms that were announced at the third plenum of the 18th Central Committee last November, it looks as though China actually, for its own reasons, is indeed trying to address a lot of these types of issues. And if they do so successfully, it could provide a base for successful continued rapid growth.
Yes, I think they are trying to do that. They have seen rapid growth. They have seen the problems which this growth has generated: inequalities, pollution, social tensions. Of course, they've benefited from the resources which the growth has provided them in quality of life, in standard of living, in influence in terms of their defense capabilities. And Xi Jinping, I think, is personally engaged, chairing many of the leading small groups himself in order to bring the pieces together. He can't do it all himself, but his commitment will make a big difference to get moving a huge system which inherently has a lot of inertia. And so we have to wish them well.